They all began coming over. That was surprise number one. Surprise number two was when one of the old buffaloes, the shaman of the herd, comes and says, "All right, girlie, off we go." "Oh, no," she says. "Oh, yes," he said. "You made your promise. We've kept our side of the bargain. Look at all my relatives here, dead. Off we go." Well, the family gets up in the morning and they look around and where's Minnehaha, you know? And the father, and you know how Indians are, he looked around, he said, "She's run off with a buffalo." He could see by the footsteps. So he says, I'm going to get her back. So he puts on his walking moccasins, bow and arrow and so forth, and goes out over the plains. He's gone quite a distance when he feels he better sit down and rest. And he comes to a place that's called a buffalo wallow, where the buffalo like to come and roll around and get the lice off and roll around in the mud. So he sits down there and is thinking what he should do now, when along comes a magpie. Now, it's a beautiful flashing bird, and it's one of those clever birds that has shamanic qualities.
Magical qualities.
Magical. And the man says to him, "Oh, beautiful bird," he said, "my daughter ran away with a buffalo. Have you seen, will you hunt around and see if you can find her out on the plain somewhere?" And the magpie says, "Well, there's a lovely girl with the buffaloes right now over there, just a bit away." "Well, they said the man, "Will you go tell her that her daddy's here, her father's here at the buffalo wallow?" Magpie flies over, and the girl is there among the buffalo. They're all asleep. I don't know what she's doing, knitting or something of the kind. And the magpie comes over close to her and he says, "Your father's over at the wallow waiting for you." "Oh," she said, "this is terrible. This is dangerous. I mean, these buffalo will kill us. You tell him to wait. I'll be over. I'll try to work this out." So her buffalo husband's behind her, and he wakes up and takes off a horn. He says, "Go to the wallow and get me a drink." So she takes the horn and goes over, and there's her father. He grabs her by the arm. He says, "Come." She says, No, this is real danger. The whole herd, they'll be right after us. I have to work this thing out. Now let me just go back. So she gets the water and goes back, and he, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Indian, you know, that sort of thing. And she says, "No, nothing of the kind." He says, "Yes, indeed." So he gives a buffalo bellow, and they all get up, and they all do a slow buffalo dance with their tails raised, and they go over, and they trample that poor man to death so that he disappears entirely. He's just all broken up to pieces and all gone. The girl's crying, and her buffalo husband says, "So you're crying?" "This is my daddy." He said, "Yeah, but what about us? There are our children, our wives, our parents, and you crying about your daddy." Well, apparently he was a kind of sympathetic, compassionate buffalo, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you, if you can bring your daddy back to life again, I'll let you go." So she turns to the magpie and says, "See, peck around a little bit and see if you can find a bit of daddy." And the magpie does so, and he comes up finally with a vertebra, just one little bone. And the little girl says, that's plenty. Now we put this down on the ground, and she puts her blanket over it, and she sings a revivifying song, a magical song with great power. And presently, yes, there's a man under the blanket. She looks, daddy all right, but he's not breathing yet. A few more stanzas of whatever the song was, and he stands up, and the buffalo are amazed. And they say, "Well, why don't you do this for us? We'll teach you now our buffalo dance, and when you will have killed our families, you do this dance and sing this song, and we'll all be back to life again." That's the basic idea, that through the ritual, that dimension is struck which transcends temporality, and out of which life comes and back into which it goes.
And it goes back to this whole idea of death, burial, and resurrection, not only for human beings,
but for the animals too.
So the story of the buffalo's wife was told to confirm the reverence.
That's right.
What happened when the white man came and slaughtered this animal of reverence?
That was a sacramental violation. I mean, in the 80s, when the buffalo hunt was undertaken, you know,
The 1880s,
Kit
100 years
Carson,
ago.
Buffalo Bill and so forth. When I was a boy, whenever we went for sleigh rides, we had a buffalo robe. Buffalo robes all over the place. This was the sacred animal of the Indian. These hunters go out with repeating rifles and then shoot down the whole herd and leave it there. They take the skin to sell and the body's left to rot. This is a sacrilege. And it really is a sacrilege.
It turned the buffalo from a thou
To an it.
The Indians addressed the buffalo as
As a thou.
an object of reverence.
The Indians addressed life as a thou. I mean, trees, and stones, and everything else. You can address anything as a thou, and you can feel the change in your psychology as you do it. The ego that sees a thou is not the same ego that sees an it. Your whole psychology changes when you address things as an it.
Whether it's a woman.
And when you go to war with the people, the problem of the newspapers is to turn those people into its so that they're not thous.
Well, that was an incredible moment in the evolution of American society when the buffalo was slaughtered. That was the final exclamation point behind the destruction of the Indian civilization, because you were destroying...
Can you imagine what this experience must have been for a people within 10 years to lose their environment, to lose their food supply, to lose the object, the central object of their ritual life?
So it is in your belief that it was in this period of hunting man and woman, the time of hunting man, that human beings began to sense a stirring of the mythic imagination, the wonder of things that they didn't know.
There is this burst of magnificent art and all the evidence you need of a mythic imagination in full career.
You visited some of the great painted caves in
yes.
Europe. Tell me what you remember when first you looked upon those underground
Well, you didn't want to leave. Here you come into an enormous chamber, like a great cathedral with these animals painted. And they're painted with a life like the life of ink on silk in the Japanese painting. And when you realize the darkness is inconceivable. We're there with electric lights, but in a couple of instances, the concierge, the man who was showing us through, turned off the lights, and you were never in darker darkness in your life. It was like I don't know, just a complete knockout of, you don't know where you are, whether you're looking north, south, east, or west. All orientation is gone, and you're in a darkness that never saw the sun. Then they turn the lights on again, and you see these gloriously painted animals. A bull that will be 20 feet long, and painted so that the haunches will be represented by a swelling in the rock. You know, they take account of the whole thing. It's incredible.
Do you ever look at these primitive art objects and think not of the art, but of the man or woman standing there painting or creating? I find that's where I speculate.
This is what hits you when you go into those caves, I can tell you that. What was in their mind when they were doing that? And that's not an easy thing to do. And how did they get up there? And how did they see anything? And what kind of light did they have? The little flashing torches throwing flickering things in it to get something of that grace and perfection. And with respect to the problem of beauty, is this beauty intended, or is it something that is the natural expression of a beautiful spirit? You know what I mean? When you hear a bird sing, the beauty of the bird's song, is this intentional? In what sense is it intentional? But it's the expression of the bird, the beauty of the bird's spirit, you might almost say. And I think that way very often about this art. To what degree was the intention of the artist what we would call aesthetic, or to what degree expressive, you know, and to what degree something that they simply had learned to do that way? It's a difficult point. When a spider makes a beautiful web, the beauty comes out of the spine.